Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. States of public emergency declared for Hanover, St. James and Clarendon. Reactions to proposal for detainees in overcrowded and dilapidated lockups to be relocated to prisons. And later in sports, defending champions Harborview secure victory as JPL playoffs begin. Thank you for joining us. I'm Shane Masters and here are the details. States of public emergency have been declared for Hanover, St. James and Clarendon. In announcing the SOEs this morning, Prime Minister Andrew Holness said that the recommendations for the security measures is in response to a surge in criminal activities within those areas. Now, the SOEs, which commenced today, will remain in place for an initial period of 14 days. Meanwhile, National Security Minister Dr. Horace Chang urged citizens to view the enhanced security measures as an opportunity to join the fight against criminality. Prime Minister Andrew Holness also emphasized the importance of citizens' involvement in curbing violence. The St. Ann Police are reporting major reductions in 6 of the major crime categories. Head of the division, Senior Superintendent Dwight Powell, gave the update at the recent sitting of the St. Ann Municipal Corporation. Shane Burke reports.
The parish of St. Ann is reporting a 27% reduction in criminal activities up to May 11. However, the head of the police in the parish says murders continue to be a difficult task to get under control. Speaking at the latest sitting of the corporation, SSP Dwight Powell said since the start of the year, the parish has recorded 25 murders compared to 16 for the same period last year.
We are showing somewhere an increase of 9 murders or 53% in that index.
And again, domestic violence-related matters are of grave concern to them.
It seems that as a parish, we are not settling amicably our domestic concerns. And so again, we are using the opportunity to advise the persons to use our dispute resolution centers or the restorative centers or the justice centers that are established across the parish. We are seeing right across the parish the upsurge in conflict situation, domestic violence situation, giving us the kind of concern. These are rather challenging for us as law enforcement officials to treat with, so we're going to ask the disputing parties to find reasonable and more suitable ways in resolving their conflict.
As for robberies, the commanding officer says there has been a dramatic reduction. He noted that since the start of the year, there were 16 robberies compared to 41 for the corresponding period in 2022.
So we have met with the industry players that especially transport cash for the ATM machines. And we are doing what we can to assist them in that regard to ensure that St. Ann will not see any of those situations that is happening across the country.
However,
we are seeing some situation in the Manig Claremont area with the robberies of some delivery trucks, motor trucks, and so it seems that we are having some challenge coming from neighboring parish, especially parish to our southwest. So we are advising motorists, especially delivery trucks operators, to check the source of the calls that they receive for deliveries.
Shane Burke, TVJ News.
Reactions this afternoon to the proposal by the Police Federation to have detainees in overcrowded and dilapidated lockups to be relocated to prisons. Now, according to 2 human rights advocacy groups, that could spell problems. Details in this report. An urgent appeal from chairman of the Police Federation to limit the number of detainees at police lockups. The call comes as Corporal Rowan James says some of those facilities are overcrowded and dilapidated. He noted that for one such lockup which he visited, 127 people were being housed when it was originally built to accommodate 67. His suggestion is that those detainees should be housed at the Horizon Remand or Tamarind Farm Correctional Facilities. But Executive Director of Jamaicans for Justice, JFJ, Michael Jackson, says transferring people from lockups to prisons will make an already bad situation far worse. She says this would also put a further strain on staff members of the Department of Correctional Services who have to provide oversight at these facilities. Ms. Jackson says the lobby group has been championing for changes to be made to the country's detention system for years. She says a cabinet subcommittee was established from as far back as 2014 to review the matter, but the problems are yet to be addressed. Executive Director of Stand Up for Jamaica, Carla Golata, says relocating people from lockups to prisons will simply move overcrowding from one location to another. She's therefore calling for a permanent solution.
And, we have to also look at the fact that persons who are in lockup, they have not yet been convicted. Some of them have not even yet been charged. So one of the concerns we have, how can we put people not yet convicted in a system, in a place with those who have been convicted of a crime? I think at some point the government, they have to move ahead with things that have been plaguing our justice system for years, things that have been documented. We remember the injustice meted out to Agana Barnett and others. So how do we, for example, fast track fixing of these things and moving towards a sustainable approach?
Ms. Jackson says the lobby group has been championing for changes to be made to the country's detention system for years. She says a cabinet subcommittee was established from as far back as 2014 to review the matter, but the problems are yet to be addressed. Executive Director of Stand Up for Jamaica, Carla Golata, says relocating people from lockups to prisons will simply move overcrowding from one location to another. She's therefore calling for a permanent solution.
We are talking about overcrowding, but in the reports they are also talking about feces on the floor, not access to the latrine, not toilets, insect, all sorts of things. I think it's a real disgrace. Also because in there are people which might be innocent, by the way. But I think that if we are looking for a solution, the solution won't be to place them in correctional services because most of the prisons are already overcrowded. So we are putting crowd on top of crowd, which won't be particularly helpful to solve the problem of overcrowding.
One Jamaican scientist is criticizing aspects of a sectoral presentation made in Parliament by the Health Minister a few weeks ago. Professor Errol Morrison believes there were health issues that weren't clearly addressed, while there are other initiatives that he would have wanted to hear about. Shamela Pullen reports.
Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton, during his sectoral presentation in Parliament on May 3, announced several initiatives the ministry will be embarking on. Overall, Jamaican scientist Professor Errol Morrison says it was an encouraging presentation, but he believes there are aspects of the presentation that are of concern and need clarification. One of the announcements made by Dr. Tufton was incentives for thousands of Jamaicans who screen for various illnesses. But Professor Morrison says he's hoping that this will be a broad-based approach and not just for persons suffering from non-communicable diseases like diabetes and hypertension.
So we're talking not only diabetes and blood pressure, we're talking about severe overweight, arthritis, the infections, many of which are now endemic, the flu, and cancers.
Dr. Tufton also mentioned that Jamaicans will also benefit from its oral health and dentures replacement program dubbed Second Chance Smiles. However, according to Professor Morrison, dental care through the public system is already inadequate, and so this needs a different approach.
If I recall, there's something like 1 in every 17,000 or something like that we are having. Whereas it should be much, much smaller, 1 in maybe 5,000 or somewhere there. So we are completely short, staffed in that area. Now, dentures come when people lose teeth. So you're looking at the end of the spectrum. And I would think that where we could be making a better impact to protect oral health is to get feedings or screenings through the hospitals, through the health centers. That is the prevention.
Meanwhile, Professor Morrison says he would have wanted to hear about adding pain medication to the National Health Fund's list.
Now, we're not seeing, you on the forms that you fill in, you will see arthritis, you may see heart disease and so on, and those will come with certain pains. But just say chronic pain that people get, back pain. It's a common thing, especially as you begin to get older, to be able to get help with those kinds of medications. I would love to see that added. And remember, we have an aging population, and we're going to be seeing more and more of these chronic pains.
Shamala Pullen, TVJ News.
And it's time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back to the Midday News. There are more complaints from the municipal corporations about agencies not turning up for meetings. This time, it's from the Manchester Municipal Corporation, where councillors say they are frustrated with the continued absence of the Jamaica Public Service JPS representatives. The JPS sends a monthly report which is circulated to councillors at each meeting. But the councillors say they need a representative to be present to answer questions which may arise from the report, as well as to address new issues.
We need to see a physical representative sitting in this council and listening to us, the councillors, that they can understand what we are dealing with out here. When I have 2 or 3 or 4 street lights out, who do I call to ask that these street lights be repaired tomorrow or tonight? That's why we have the problem.
Meanwhile, Chairman of the corporation, Donovan Mitchell, says he's considering writing to the company's president and copying the letter to the relevant ministry to have the matter addressed.
The JPS their policy directives and changes have caused more stress and distress on the citizens of Jamaica. There's an emergency, and they are telling you that you have to call and you have to log this and log that and log all quality sort of things.
The corporation chairman is also urging councillors to be proactive as the hurricane season approaches and to report any tree branches which may be touching JPS power lines. They were speaking at the Manchester Municipal Corporation monthly meeting recently. And it's time for the Business Minute. The Guyana-based subsidiary of Supreme Ventures has announced the restructuring of its administrative and retail operations. SVL says as part of its expansion plans, Ibert Supreme will relocate its retail operations and the company's corporate offices. Senior Vice President of Product Management and Business Development at SVL, Stephen Miller, says the new state-of-the-art retail facility in Georgetown will better serve customers and enhance their gaming experience. The company has also established a new corporate office, which it says will help improve service to clients and the 70 retailers in Guyana. Ibert Supreme launched in December 2018. And approval has been granted by EU regulators for Microsoft's $69 billion push to purchase Call of Duty publisher Activision Blizzard. The European Commission EC said Microsoft had addressed their concerns on competition issues. It comes 3 weeks after the UK blocked the deal over worries it would hurt competition in the emerging cloud gaming business. The proposed takeover is poised to be the biggest deal in gaming history, but has split global regulators. In order for the deal to go through, Microsoft and Activision need approval from regulatory bodies in the UK, EU, and the US. And that's it for the Business Minute. Time now for the top regional and international stories.
In the region, Haiti's government has now turned to Africa and Latin America for help with contributing to the deployment of a multinational military force for the country. This comes as gang violence has claimed hundreds of lives over the past few months. However, the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres says a proposal has been made to include the training of Haiti's police force to crack down on gangs. Meanwhile, officials say the overall situation could become irrecoverable in the immediate future if nothing is done in terms of the security situation. On the international scene, at least 6 people have died after a fire broke out at a hostel in New Zealand's capital Tuesday morning. About 100 people were believed to have been inside the building at the time. Firefighters were able to evacuate 52 people, while 5 others were taken to hospital. However, authorities are unable to put a number on how many people remain unaccounted for. The cause of the fire is being investigated. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Hal Shaneberg.
We head to a quick break. When we come back, Jermaine Brown will have your midday sports report.